Welcome to the Ask Junior Supreme Court Monthly Roundup podcast, where we focus on October Supreme Court judgments. I'm Priya, and joining me today is Arjun.
Hello, everyone. We're excited to dive deep into today's discussion. We've got some fascinating Supreme Court judgments to explore, and there's plenty of legal intricacy to unpack. So before we get started, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share our podcast so you never miss out on these important conversations.
All right, Arjun, let's get into it. The first case we have on our list today is Union of India versus Rajiv Bansal.
Union of India versus Rajiv Bansal.
So in this case, we're dealing with the Taxation and Other Laws, Relaxation and Amendment of Certain Provisions Act 2020, also known as TOLA, and its interplay with the new reassessment regime that came into effect with the Finance Act 2021.
Exactly, Priya. It's a case that really shows how even procedural laws can have far-reaching impacts. The core question was whether TOLA, which was meant to provide relief during the pandemic, could still affect the reassessment timelines under the Income Tax Act after April 1st, 2021. The court used the concept of legal fiction, essentially treating things as if they were different from what they actually are, to ensure reassessment notices issued between April and June 2021 could still be valid, albeit under the new regime.
Right? And the nuance here is what makes this ruling important. The court made it clear that while TOLA could override the time limits under Section 148, it did not extend the limits under Section 149. This distinction is crucial for both taxpayers and tax authorities alike.
Absolutely. And that's where the broader implication lies. It's about how procedural deadlines can be interpreted, especially when there are changes midway. The government can't just extend deadlines without specific statutory provisions, and taxpayers need to be acutely aware of how reassessment timelines are calculated in such scenarios.
This also points to a larger theme of consistency in tax laws, which is so important to prevent confusion and ensure fairness. Let's move on to the next case. Omkar versus the Union of India is next, and it's a major step forward for disability rights in education.
Omkar versus the Union of India.
Absolutely. This is one of those cases that really underscores the principles of inclusion. At the heart of the case was whether a person with a 40% disability or more should automatically be disqualified from MBBS admission. The court clearly said no. Disability should not be an automatic disqualification.
Exactly. The disability assessment boards have a duty to make a positive determination about whether the specific disability would genuinely hinder someone from pursuing an MBBS. It can't just be a blanket rule. The court also highlighted the need for reasonable accommodation, a key concept in the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act 26th, to ensure that individuals with disabilities are given an equal opportunity.
And that's really the essence here, Priya. The court directed the National Medical Commission to review its regulations to align with the RPWD Act. It's about breaking down those automatic barriers that keep talented individuals out of fields like medicine just because they have a disability.
I also think it's important that the court established an appellate mechanism for candidates to challenge decisions by these assessment boards. It's a big deal, giving candidates the right to appeal if they feel they've been unjustly excluded.
Right? And in Omkar's case, the court confirmed his admission based on a favorable report from Maulana Azad Medical College. It's a real win for inclusivity, and it sets a precedent for how disability rights are treated in educational contexts.
Absolutely. This is a big step toward ensuring accessibility in medical education. Moving on, let's talk about the Patna Municipal Corporation versus MS Triborough Ad Bureau.
The Patna Municipal Corporation versus MS Triborough Ad Bureau.
This is a fascinating case involving municipal power and contractual law. The question was whether the Patna Municipal Corporation's demand for an enhanced royalty rate of Rs. 10 per square foot for advertisements was legitimate, specifically whether it was a royalty or a tax.
And the court concluded that it was indeed a royalty. The distinction is subtle but important. A royalty is a contractual payment from a lessee to a lessor, whereas a tax is a compulsory payment imposed by the government without a specific benefit to the payer. The advertising companies had agreed to pay a royalty, so the enhancement was within bounds.
But there's an interesting wrinkle here. the penalties for non-payment. The court found that the municipal corporation did not have the authority to impose these penalties. Instead, they directed the advertising companies to pay the enhanced royalty with simple interest at 6% per annum, starting from when the revised rate was communicated.
It's a great example of the judiciary stepping in to ensure fairness, enforcing the contractual agreement, but also curbing overreach. Municipal bodies need to operate within their statutory limits, just like everyone else.
Exactly. Now let's dive into INRI Section 6A of the Citizenship Act 1955. This case has garnered significant attention due to its implications for Assam and the Assam Accord.
INRI Section 6A of the Citizenship Act 1955.
Right, Arjun. Section 6A was introduced to implement the Assam Accord, and the core issue here was whether this provision violated the Constitution by causing demographic shifts and potentially eroding Assamese culture. Petitioners invoked Articles 14, 21, 29, and 355.
The court ultimately upheld Section 6A by a majority, stating that Assam's unique historical context justified differential treatment. The idea is that treating Assam differently isn't necessarily discriminatory. It's a form of affirmative action that takes into account the state's specific needs.
But there was a dissenting opinion that's worth mentioning. One of the judges argued that Section 6A had become unconstitutional over time because it lacked temporal limits, putting an unfair burden on the state. It's a concern that reflects the challenges of balancing inclusion with practical governance.
It certainly does, Priya. The court also directed the government to take concrete steps to address illegal immigration while ensuring that those who are protected under Section 6A are not adversely affected. It's a nuanced decision with real implications for citizenship law in India.
Absolutely. Now for our final case today, State of UP versus MS Lalta Prasad Vaish's Sons.
State of UP versus MS Lalta Prasad Vaish's Sons.
This case takes us into the complexities of constitutional entries. Specifically, the question was whether intoxicating liquors under Entry 8, List 2 of the 7th Schedule included both potable alcohol and non-potable industrial alcohol.
The court held that it does include both, but, and this is the important bit, the state's power over industrial alcohol is only to prevent its diversion into the market as potable alcohol. The union has exclusive legislative control over fermentation industries involving non-potable alcohol under Entry 52, List 1, and Entry 33A, List 3.
They also partially overruled Synthetics and Chemicals Ltd v. State of UP, clarifying that while the union has control over manufacturing, the state's power is more about preventing misuse. It's a balancing act between federal and state powers, and the decision clarifies who is responsible for what.
It's a reminder of how complex regulatory frameworks can be when different types of alcohol are involved, and why the balance of power between state and central government is so critical. The court's decision will have a major impact on both the liquor and industrial alcohol sectors.
Absolutely, Priya. And that wraps up our discussion of today's judgments. Each of these decisions not only clarifies specific legal questions, but also has significant social, economic, and political implications.
Exactly. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the latest Supreme Court judgments. If you found this episode insightful, please remember to like, subscribe, and share our podcast. Tomorrow, we'll be diving into more fascinating legal issues that shape our society.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. Until next time, stay curious and keep questioning.
Bye for now.